was a night of absolute silence in the university dormitory. 4 young men, Amir, Ali, Mohammed, and Ehsan, were playing a computer game in their room. Suddenly, they heard the sound of something falling from the next room. Amir said in surprise, "Did you hear that?" Ali shrugged and said, "It was probably a cat." Mohammed said in a frightened tone, "No, it sounded like a heavy book falling." Ehsan, who was the most scared of all, shivered and said, "What if it's a thief?" Amir tried to calm him down and said, "Nah, man, thieves don't come to dorms. Maybe one of the kids woke up and dropped something." But fear had taken root in Ehsan's heart. He kept looking around and listening for small sounds. Suddenly, the closet of one of the boys opened with a loud creak. Ehsan let out a loud scream and jumped up. The boys ran to the closet and opened it. There was nothing inside the closet. Amir said in a disgruntled tone, "It was nothing, just the wind." But the fear remained in the boys' hearts. That night, none of them could sleep. The next morning, the boys went to the next room to see who had been there. But the room was locked, and no one had access to it. This incident was the beginning of a series of strange events that took place in the dormitory. Objects were suddenly moved, strange noises were heard, and vague shadows were seen in the darkness. The boys, who were terrified, decided to move out of the dormitory. But even after leaving the dormitory, the strange events did not leave them alone. To this day, no one knows what happened in that dormitory. Perhaps a wandering spirit haunted it, or perhaps a supernatural being was present in that place. But the mystery of that dormitory remains unsolved. Amir, Ali, Muhammad, and Ehsan thought they were finally free from the strange events after moving out of the dormitory. But they were wrong. Each of them was alone in their room in their new dormitory when strange things suddenly happened. In Amir's room, the lights would flicker on and off, and dark shadows would appear in the corners of the room. In Ali's room, objects would move around on their own, and his closet would open and close with a creaking sound. In Muhammad's room, mournful wails could be heard, and the temperature in the room would suddenly drop. And in Ehsan's room, who was the most scared of all, the paintings on the wall would come to life and stare at him. The boys, who were terrified, came together again. They knew they had to do something. They decided to look for the source of these strange events. Their investigation led them to the creepy basement of their old dormitory. They entered the basement with fear and trembling. The air was cold and damp, and absolute darkness reigned. Suddenly, a horrible scream echoed from the depths of the darkness. The boys jumped back in terror, but their curiosity was stronger than their fear. They slowly moved towards the source of the sound, until they reached an old, rotten wooden door. Amir opened the door with a trembling hand. They were faced with a horrifying scene. In the room, a woman with long matted hair and torn, dirty clothes lay on the floor. The woman's eyes were sunken in, and her face was contorted in fear and pain. It appeared that she had been imprisoned there for years. The boys, frozen in terror, didn't know what to do. Suddenly, the woman opened her eyes and stared at them. An inhuman sound came from her mouth that made the boys' bones shiver. The woman screamed, "Get out! Get out!" The boys fled the room in terror and slammed the door shut. They ran out of the basement as fast as they could and never returned to that place again. To this day, they don't know who that woman was or why she was imprisoned in the basement of the dormitory. But the secret of that woman and the creepy basement of the dormitory was forever etched in their minds. And every night, the nightmare of that woman and her horrible screams haunted them. Years years had passed since those horrific events. Amir, Ali, Muhammad, and Ehsan had each moved on with their lives. But the memories of that woman and the creepy basement of the dormitory still haunted them. One day, Amir, who was tormented by nightmares, decided to return to the old dormitory alone. He wanted to face his past and perhaps find a way to get rid of those horrible memories. Amir cautiously entered the dormitory grounds. Everything was quiet and deserted. He went to the basement and opened the old, rotten wooden door. He entered the room with trembling and fear. The room was dark and dusty. Suddenly a sound caught his attention. A faint moan came from a corner of the room. Amir slowly moved towards the sound until he came across a small, shivering body in the corner of the room. Amir turned on his phone flashlight and was faced with a strange sight. A thin, pale little girl with long, messy hair lay on the floor. The girl opened her eyes and stared at Amir. A deep sadness was reflected in her eyes. Amir asked calmly, "Who are you?" the girl said in a trembling voice. I'm Sarah. I'm trapped in this room." Amir asked in surprise. "How? Why?" Sarah told Amir her sad story. She had been kidnapped years ago by the woman Amir and his friends had seen in the basement. The woman had imprisoned her in this room and abused her for grueling tasks. Amir, who was angry after hearing this story, decided to help Sarah. He took Sarah out of the room and gave her food and water. Sarah, overjoyed at her miraculous rescue, thanked Amir. Amir took Sarah to his house and took care of her. Over time, Amir and Sarah fell in love and got married. With the help of Amir and his friends, Sarah forgot the bitter memories of her past and started a new life. But the mystery of the woman who had imprisoned Sarah remained unsolved. It is said that the spirit of that woman still wanders in that creepy basement, waiting for a new victim. No one knows if the woman's curse has been broken. But one thing is for sure, Amir and Sarah will never forget the horrific memories they experienced.